Tonight on KBTV World News, scientists say E.T. is calling.
I was shocked. I read it in the paper this morning.
You did?
Yes.
And you feel shocked?
Yes, I am.
Why are you so shocked?
I'm just shocked that it happened. I mean, to read that, I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know anything was going on.
Yeah, I believe that discovering that the possibility of other people in this universe will make us realize that we are not the only people or things here, and make us really what we are, a small part of a very big universe.
Actually, I'd always thought that there were some intelligent beings out there. I mean, I wanted to know what makes us think that we're so superior that we're the only ones here. I'm glad to hear that.
But the financial community was not nearly so upbeat.
Wall Street had its worst day since the crash of '87, plunging a free-falling 596 points.
Concerned, but not alarmed, at the unusual amount of activity they experienced after yesterday's historic announcement. Although there was a surge in withdrawals from...
The scientists became celebrities overnight.
We're going to have to get used to that other strange monster, the press pack. And the question all these journalists are asking is, just who and what are these alien creatures?
Despite the astronomers' insistence that the signal had come from trillions of miles away, many reports gave the impression aliens would be arriving any minute. The media was obsessed with what the creatures might look like. But above all, they wanted to know, was the Earth in danger?
How do you defend against an extraterrestrial attack? The answer might lie with the Star Wars technology developed in the 1980s to counter Soviet nuclear missiles. If the lasers from this satellite defense were turned outward towards space, might they be able to counter any extraterrestrial attack?
Over the days that followed, there was growing evidence of confusion and misunderstanding among the public and the press. Reports of UFOs and alien contacts soared.
I could see the little legs on it, like little pods on the bottom.
It was a saucer-shaped deal.
I seen it. I know what I've seen. I'm a believer in it.
A number of doctors and psychologists today expressed concern about the possible destabilizing effects the discovery of aliens might have upon people they consider psychologically susceptible.
One of the journalists who attended SETI's press conference was Cheryl Davis, a freelance writer with a special interest in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Davis recalls what happened when she returned home on the evening of the astronomer's announcement.
I remember that night. I'd just been given this monumental news, and the world just seemed so normal to me. I guess I just figured that when we finally contacted alien life from outer space, they would just come right down to the White House and plant themselves on the lawn. So I come in, I'm on this daze from this press conference, and I'm listening to my answering machine, and there's this one really bizarre one. I kept it. It was so strange. I mean, he talked about Roswell.
Maybe it's time to think about Roswell again, Miss Davis.
Davis knew Roswell as a town where some people claimed a UFO had crash-landed back in 1947. She was also aware that the US Air Force had recently offered an explanation for what had really happened at Roswell all those years ago. They said the supposed UFO had actually been a crashed surveillance balloon from a secret program known as Project Mogul. Davis immediately contacted Bill Gregory, a journalist who had worked on the Mogul story, and reported her phone message.
You know, whenever you heard anything that came out of Roswell, it was usually some crazy theory about aliens or a UFO sighting. But when Cheryl called me about a signal, plus what I'd been reading in the Mogul report, I thought maybe I had to take one more look down here.
Gregory knew that the top-secret Project Mogul had operated from Holloman Air Force Base about 150 miles from Roswell. He soon discovered that one of the project's research engineers was still alive and living in the area. His name was Walter Drexler.
None of us engineers really knew what was going on exactly, but I knew there was a infrared sensor on board, and if the test worked, we'd have one of those balloons along the border of the Soviet Union. Maybe it would detect a nuclear missile test or something like that.
According to Drexler, the balloon must have detected something the military wanted to keep top secret.
I heard that the balloon had crashed, and I figured it must have picked up something before it crashed, because the base went on alert for several weeks. And the fellows were saying that it had picked up something from out there.
Drexler's extraordinary revelation that a signal had been received from outer space threw the Roswell incident into a completely new light. The talk had always been of crashed UFOs, but this seemed every bit as incredible. A Cold War spy balloon detecting an extraterrestrial communication. The question Gregory now needed to answer was this: was there any connection between the Roswell signal and the signal received by SETI astronomers almost 50 years later?
Thousands of Eureka-themed products to be in the shops by Christmas.
Perhaps, when you're weary of civil war, you're bound to find flying saucers more appealing than flying warplanes.
In Russia, already beset by civil war, some saw the signal as a sign of deliverance, and false UFO sightings began to proliferate.
This man told us, I thought at first it must have been my hangover, but I hadn't been drinking. There were these bright lights in the sky, hovering right above me.
Meanwhile, countries of the Middle East reacted with ambivalence. Islamic leaders rejoiced at finding the universe contained more of God's creatures. But governments hostile to America dismissed the reports of extraterrestrial communications as a trick, an excuse for the US military to place weapons of mass destruction wherever it pleased. In the face of mounting international protest, the UN went into emergency session. On the agenda was how the Earth should respond. Should the UN initiate an international space program? And was the US controlling the contact with the aliens? 2 months later, they were still arguing. 3 months after the discovery of the signal, the American public was frustrated at the lack of progress. An impatient Congress demanded the US take the lead in this new space race. The pressure for unilateral action came as no surprise to NASA's research policy advisor, Rosemary Gallo.
I've always believed that this kind of discovery would generate a lot of enthusiasm, both on the part of the public and for the scientific community. What it gave us was a concrete focus for all kinds of space research.
The scientific community felt strongly that the signal should not belong to anyone. And while they desperately needed better telescopes, most scientists wanted to avoid the politics of where the money came from, the US, the UN, or elsewhere. Finally, on the 13th of October 2001, Congress decided the matter with a huge reallocation of funds for extraterrestrial research.